Welcome to TIOMS. Time is on my side, making technology work in your business. This is our e-learning portal where we provide free of charge training videos, quizzes and associated example downloads. If you require further information or assistance with training, please contact us at TIOMS. Thank you. An introduction to project scope. This part of the DEEP project management system deals with the scope. The scope document for a project is extremely important. This document allows you to make it very clear to people working within the project and for people waiting to get the results of the project, make it very clear what the project is about. What will it deliver? Also, it may be important to describe simply what it won't deliver, so there's no misunderstandings when the project is complete. Now, at this point in the project, you don't know all the detail, but you should have some reasonable overview plan, some estimation of costs, some estimation of resources, and so on. And we put this all together in the scope. And then the scope can be changed using change control. So if after the scope is completed and signed off, you want to make a change, that should be put to and agreed by the project committee and documented in the meeting document that the changes have been agreed, and that is then changed in the scope and made clear that the change has been agreed. So let's have a look at the document. This is viewing this document in Microsoft Word, but as we mentioned earlier, you could work on this document in OpenOffice, for instance. So OpenOffice software you can download for free, and you can access and work on Word docx documents. So the idea of this document is really to ensure that you think about all the things you need to think about when you're writing the scope for a project. And if there's items in here that aren't applicable, then you just delete them. So I'll just go through some of that methodology. So here we have the word title. We would put in the project title. Put in the date here of the last time the document was updated. There are some notes in the document, and here it's saying, well, the scope and business case can be the same document. So for small, medium projects, a scope document and business case can be joined together. For larger projects, you'd want the scope and the business case to be separate. So I've got rid of that note. And we get down to the beginning of the document itself. You can see here we have a header, and we can now change the header to my project, and page numbering is already set, so that will go all the way through the document now. So at the top of each page we have my project and the page number. Now the contents is derived by using styles. You can see these styles across the top. So providing I put introduction as header 1, it will write itself into the contents. And for instance, under legal, we've got subheaders, they'll be written as header 2. Now if you, within the body of the document, add or delete headers, you will need to update the contents, and as you add more information and the page numbers change, you'll need to change the content. And to do that, you right click on one of the items within the contents list and say update field and choose update the entire table. So do this as you go along, but certainly when you finish the scope before you issue it to anybody, you go into the contents, right click, update field and update entire table. So to show how that works, I'll go down to that first item, which is introduction, and you can see that's heading 1. So if I change that to my intro and go back to the contents list and right click, update field, update table, you see introduction now says my intro. So you can make these changes where applicable. So throughout the document, we've got in italics some short instructions or hints or tips, and those of course you will delete before you start work. So I'm going to delete that, and you can see that my cursor is here and it's chosen the normal text that I'm going to use throughout the document, and that's the style of the text and the size. So the introduction will be this project, blah, blah, blah. What's the project about? A short paragraph that explains to someone in simple terms what the project is about. Then move on to the project team. So the project manager. So you've got a project manager, somebody in control of the project and in control of the reports that would go to senior management or the project team steering group or whatever you might have. Project sponsor, that's usually the person that holds the purse strings and has agreed that this project should go ahead. Subject matter experts in the project team. So normally within a project you'll have project team staff, and they'll be doers within the project, so they'll be given actions and things to do. Subject matter experts may be given actions, but they will be called upon to give advice on their specific expertise to do with this project. It's also very important to identify where there will be third parties working on the project and what their roles are, so there's no misunderstanding there. So a vendor, risk assessment, lawyers, other contractors, all sorts of various third parties can be involved in the project, and it needs to be very clear why they are there and what they're going to do. And here, once you've agreed the project, you'll enter a sign-off date. And on to which areas of the business will be involved. So here we would enter a short description of those business areas. And this can be quite important. You need to think through how will this project impact on the business and who will be asked to be involved, how those business areas will interact with the project and so on. Will it affect the way they work? Will it affect the timing of the project? Are there particular times of year where those people may not be able to be involved, such as if it's a peak time at Christmas or year end, for instance? So if we wanted to put a selection of businesses under different headings there, we could say, let's try and start with accounts. And I want them to be on the menu under heading 2, so I'd put accounts in there, and then You can see we're on our normal now, and we can say the accounts team will blah 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 blah. And after accounts, we're going to talk about the sales team. So we'll highlight sales, call it heading 2 again, and then the sales team will, and so on. And those will appear in the menu now, once we do that right click and update the menu. What IT or communication systems will be affected or implemented? So this is quite important in an office-based project. There's usually an element of IT. It might be completely IT, but there's normally an element of IT involved, and the clarity of where that fits in to the existing systems needs to be described. So how will it be affected? How will it be implemented? Will it require new servers, new cloud systems, new communication devices, the whole sort of areas that are going to be really important to ensure the success of the project. So again, you might want to start breaking these down into, say, mobile devices. Highlight that, heading 2. There will need to be, etc. You see that's still heading 2. I'm going to make that normal. Mobile devices, we're going to need laptop computers and the type of laptop required, etc., etc. So you're getting the hang now of how we're going to do subsections if we want them, or actually delete whole sections if we wish. Now this is an interesting one, the outcome of the project. So it says describe the main points of the outcome of the project. What will it deliver? So if this project goes ahead and is successful, what do we expect to be the outcome? Very simple terms, paragraph, 2 paragraphs. What is the outcome of the project? Value and benefits. This is always going to be important, but it is extra important that you concentrate on this benefits area. So if you are putting up a case to say that if we do this project and we get the outcome as described, there's going to be a selection of value to the business or benefits or whatever they might be. These will need, once documented here, they will need to be followed up on as the project progresses, and certainly once the project has been implemented for a month or 2, you'll go back to the scope and look at what you said the benefits are going to be and see, are we on track? Are we actually getting these benefits? Now the benefits may be purely and simply in dollars. We're going to make more money, or we're going to save money by doing this project. It might be that we're going to save resources, we might save people, we might save office space, we might save the amount of printers that we do, the amount of paper we use, whatever it might be. There may be time savings. We might say that we can save 3 hours a day per person in this particular team and use that time to gain benefit elsewhere or value elsewhere. And often there's other less tangible benefits, far more difficult to gauge, but a project might involve just making the environment better for staff, or making the whole way of working a more pleasurable place to be for the staff. If you you find that quite difficult then to gauge the benefits of that, unless maybe you surveyed the staff 3 months, 5 months after the implementation, and you surveyed them 3 or 4 or 5 months before the implementation, and then check the differences. Can you see that this particular project is actually working as you said it was? It could be an office refurb or something like that. Now to look at some areas of the scope that are sometimes overlooked or not given the real attention that they require. Now, if it's a small internal project, these areas may not be required at all. But if you've got third parties involved and you may have on-site work and there may be building involved or whatever it might be, these areas are quite important. So we've talked about describing the responsibilities of staff and third parties in the project. And then we look at delivery terms. So ensure that we've got very clear terms of conditions for the third parties that describes what they've got to deliver, how they deliver it, and the costs and so on. We must make sure we've covered all areas of security, particularly with IT systems or access to buildings or access to information held in the company. Payment terms, there may be payments based on progress, and there may be payments at the end of a project and payment held up if the project has not delivered what it said it would deliver and so on. The timing has to be very clear. Quite often working with third parties within a project, timing is difficult to deal with, where the third party relies on somebody in your organisation completing a piece of work, completing their action before that third party can do something. Now, if they said that we're going to have this completed in 3 weeks, it might be based on having some information provided by somebody else. So that time can stretch out due to no fault of their own if the project managing people are not ensuring that staff are delivering what they should deliver. And as I say, all those responsibilities need to be laid out quite clearly. Accounting, it's always worth going through the contracts, costs and so on with an accountant in the business to ensure that you're getting the best bang for bucks from taxation. Insurance, you may need to review what covers are required. Are you covered for the activities of minor contractors, and who will take out the covers, particularly if you've got building work, structural work going on. Make sure all these areas are well covered. Industrial relations, so if employees are involved that may be moving department, moving company, even moving organisation, make sure that you have well written, clear transfer arrangements and fully understand future contract terms. Safety, one subject often overlooked, and it may be very simple, 2 or 3 lines, a small paragraph that you need in your scope about safety, but it may be that you need to cover this in great detail. So, is there a safety plan? What is the obligations of the parties involved? How are you reporting on safety and how is that audited? And take particular care of the activities of minor contracts and their safety obligations to themselves and also to people within your organisation. in many cases in the scope, it is worth having a section on the management post-contract signing. So you've signed a contract maybe to have some development work done or building done or whatever it might be, and that needs to be measured as you move through the project. Now, other areas of the DEEP process has change control documentation, benefits tracking, executive reporting, and so on. But in here, just a few words around how contract or contractors' agreements are going to be measured as we go along. So it's all very well measuring the project process and making sure the project's on time, but are we actually getting from the contractors what we've agreed to get? We don't want to find at the end of the project there's great holes in it. We want to find that out as we move along. Our costs. So there's a whole range of items here to make you think about costs. You won't know all of the costs at this stage. This is the scope document. But you should have a fair idea of where costs are going to come from and then be able to put some estimates around those costs. So you can see we may have costs for consultancy, plant and machinery, site works, fit out, legal, fluctuation, cost of currency, contracts and consents, hardware, software, implementation, training. Ongoing is quite an important one. What are the ongoing costs? So we say this project is going to cost us X dollars to do, but how much per annum is it going to cost once the project's completed? That one's often missed out. And what supports and warranties have we got, and what are the costs for those? And the biggie, a percentage for contingency. Every project that's ever been done always costs more than we said it would in the first place. So we need a percentage for contingency. I would suggest 15% would be reasonable. Payments in line with cash flow is quite an interesting one. So we may have a project plan and we may have a budget against that plan, and it may be broken down so the budget is broken down into individual areas. But if all we do is track the project by saying we haven't spent all our money yet, the chances are that just before we get to the end, we find we're going to have a blowout. So the cost estimates against actual should be, according to the size of the project, but could be weekly, could be monthly. And they should be saying we expect a cost to come in and be paid for this at this date. And when that costs come in, compare it against the actual. Is there an overspend or an underspend? And what's the impact of that at the end of the project? So potentially you can see right at the beginning, if the first few payments that are made are greater than the estimate, you can identify a blowout in cost long before the project is completed and take action as may be necessary. Resources. Described all the resources required for the project. So we talked earlier about the staff and third parties, and some of that will be in here. But don't forget things like facilities and equipment. Have you got space for the project staff? Have you got somewhere for them to sit? Have they got a telephone? Have they got a computer? Have they got the access that they need? Have they got mobile equipment that they might need? How do they interact with third parties who may not have access to your local system and data on your local system? How do you interact with information between you? Quite often things like email isn't able to carry the size of documentation and files that you need to be processed between the parties in the project. So it's worth reviewing and thinking all that through at this stage. The project plan. Now again, you may not have an extreme detailed plan at this point of doing the scope, but you should be able to put together some sort of plan and time scale, expected time scale. And you'll see that we have in the DEEP process an Excel template to help you with that. You could of course use Microsoft Project or similar software. Many people are confused with those types of software, but are very familiar with Excel. So we've done a template in Excel for the general managers that are competent with Excel but are a bit lost using Microsoft Project. So this would be, you could either have a link in here or a connection to the Excel template that we produce in DEEP. Not in scope. That is often left out completely, and just give that a little bit of thought at this point and describe here things that people may think are covered in this project but are not. And this will save a great deal of heartache in the future. So just think what people might think this project will deliver, but it isn't going to, and ensure that that's clearly documented here. It may be this project is dealing with the red team office. Now the blue team might think it's dealing with their office as well. So we're clearly saying here that this project is only for the red team office, and then all those misconceptions are gone. Recommendation to proceed. So by going through the whole scope and getting to the point where you've brought all your information together, you've done your things like your 6 hats earlier and everything else. So a short paragraph there on the recommendation to proceed, and then some sign-off process at the end. Now ideally, as we've said before, we're not looking to print all these things and send them around and get people to physically sign them and then scan them and all that type of stuff. So our process is a document sent by email, and an acceptance email sent back is accepted as sign-off. So there we are, that's the project scope document. If we go back to the beginning and have a look at the contents again. So I'll right click on here, update the field, update the table. You will see there's some other areas automatically get added in now. So remember we added accounts and sales and mobile devices, laptop computers, etc. So that's automatically now updated. Your contents. And that's that. So remember, you're not expected in every project to need to use every paragraph that we've got in there. If it's not required, just delete it and update the contents list. So if I go down here and I say, look, legal, that legal is, I've reviewed that, it's not relevant in this project, highlight the whole lot, press the delete key, and away it goes. And then go back to the contents and update it as we said. So this scope document template will be available to you on the TIOMS website for you to download and use as the basis for you to develop your project scopes. All of the templates discussed in the TIOMS DEEP project management methodology training sessions are available free at www.tiomsdeep.com. www.tioms.com.au. Thank you for trying our TIOMS e-learning. Please contact us if you require help with training in your organisation. Thank you.